The night sky had never looked so empty to Dr. Elena Vasquez. She stood at the window of the Geneva Control Center, her coffee growing cold in her hands. Behind her, dozens of scientists worked at their stations, checking numbers and watching screens. But Elena's eyes were fixed on the stars, that it was the year 2147, and humanity had just done something incredible. They had built the Prometheus Array, the largest communication system ever created. Giant transmitters floated in space, circling Earth like a necklace of hope. Together, they could send a message so powerful that it would reach every corner of the Milky Way. Galaxy. Elena had spent 20 years of her life on this project. She had missed birthdays and holidays. She had watched her hair turn gray. She had sacrificed everything for one simple dream: to find out if humans were alone in the universe. 3 years ago, they had sent the message. It carried the sound of human music from ancient drums to modern songs. It carried pictures of Earth, of mountains and oceans and cities full of light. It carried math problems and their solutions, proving that whoever sent this message could think and reason. And at the end, it carried a simple question in every way they could express it: we are here. Is anyone else? For 3 years, the answer had been silence. Elena turned away from the window and walked back to her station. Her assistant, a young man named Thomas, looked up at her with tired eyes. He'd been with the project for 5 years now, and the hope that once burned bright in him had started to fade. Anything? Elena asked, even though she already knew the answer. Thomas shook his head. Nothing, Dr. Vasquez. Just like yesterday. Just like the day before. Elena sat down in her chair and rubbed her eyes. The governments of Earth were getting impatient. They had spent trillions on the Prometheus Array. They wanted results. Some politicians were already calling the project a waste of money. A few had even suggested shutting it down, but Elena refused to give up. She believed, deep in her heart, that someone was out there. The universe was too big, too old, too full of stars for Earth to be the only world with life. Someone had to be listening. That night, Elena fell asleep at her desk. She dreamed of alien cities and strange beings reaching out across the darkness to shake her hand. In her dream, they thanked her for calling out to them. They said they had been waiting for so long. She woke up to screaming Dot at first. She thought something terrible had happened. Alarms were ringing. People were running. Thomas was shaking her shoulder so hard, she nearly fell out of her chair. Dr. Vasquez. Dr. Vasquez, wake up. We found something. Elena's heart nearly stopped. She jumped to her feet and ran to the main screen, where a crowd of scientists had already gathered. Numbers and charts filled the display, and in the center was a signal pattern unlike anything she had ever seen. When did this come in? She demanded. 7 minutes ago, Thomas said. His voice was shaking. It's strong, Dr. Vasquez. Really strong. Stronger than anything we've ever detected. Elena studied the signal. It was complex and organized, clearly not natural. Someone had sent this on purpose. Someone intelligent. Where is it coming from? She asked. Which star system? How far away? Thomas looked at her with an expression she could not understand. It was not joy or excitement. It was confusion mixed with fear. That's the thing, he said slowly. It's not coming from space. Elena frowned. What do you mean? The array only detects signals from outside Earth's atmosphere. I know, but we checked 5 times. The signal is coming from Earth itself, from somewhere in the Pacific Ocean. The control room went quiet. Elena stared at Thomas, then at the screen, then back at Thomas. This made no sense. The Prometheus Array was designed to listen to the stars, not to the planet below. That's impossible, she whispered. I thought so too, Thomas replied. But look at this. He pulled up a map of the Pacific Ocean on the screen. A red dot blinked in the middle of it, marking the source of the signal. According to the data, it was coming from a point about 6 miles beneath the surface of the water. Elena felt cold. 6 miles down was the deepest part of the ocean. No human technology could survive the pressure at that depth for long. No human technology should be down there at all. Someone is answering us, she said. But they're not in the stars. They're right here. They've been here all along. Over the next few weeks, the world went crazy with the news. Some people celebrated, believing that aliens had been living on Earth for centuries. Others panicked, fearing an invasion. Religious leaders gave speeches about angels and demons. Scientists argued on television about what the signal could mean, but Elena did not join the debates. She was too busy planning an expedition. The United Earth Coalition gave her everything she asked for. They built a special submarine that could survive the crushing depths of the ocean. They gathered a team of the best scientists, engineers, and soldiers they could find. They prepared for anything. 3 months after detecting the signal, Elena climbed into the submarine and began the long journey down into the darkness. The descent took hours. Sunlight disappeared within the first few hundred feet. The water turned black. Strange creatures swam past the windows, fish with glowing bodies and teeth like needles. The pressure outside grew stronger and stronger, pushing against the walls of the submarine. Finally, they reached the bottom. And there, rising from the ocean floor like a mountain made of metal, was something that should not exist. It was a structure. A building of some kind, but built in a style no human had ever used. Its walls curved in strange angles. Lights glowed softly from windows that were not quite square. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "My God," Thomas whispered beside her. "How long has this been here?" Elena did not answer. She was looking at the symbols carved into the walls of the structure. They matched the patterns in the signal they had received. Someone had built this thing, and they had built it long ago. As the submarine drew closer, a door in the structure began to open. Light spilled out into the dark water, warm and golden. Elena felt her heart pounding in her chest. They had called out to the galaxy, asking if anyone was there. And something on Earth had answered. Something old. Something that had been waiting. Elena took a deep breath and gave the order to move forward. Whatever was inside, whatever truth awaited them, humanity was about to learn it. There was no turning back now. The submarine passed through the door, and the light swallowed them whole. The inside of the structure was not what Elena had expected. She had imagined dark hallways and ancient dust. Instead, she found a cathedral of light. The submarine floated into a massive chamber filled with air, not water. Somehow, the structure had kept the ocean out for what must have been thousands of years. Maybe longer. The walls glowed with a soft blue light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Strange machines lined the room, their purposes unknown. Elena and her team put on their suits and stepped out of the submarine. Their boots echoed on the smooth floor. No one spoke. No one knew what to say. Thomas walked up to one of the walls and touched it gently. The surface was warm, like skin. "This material," he said quietly. "I don't recognize it. It's not metal. It's not stone. It's something else entirely." Elena nodded. She was looking at the center of the chamber, where a tall pillar rose from the floor to the ceiling. Lights danced inside it like trapped stars. She walked toward it slowly, drawn by something she could not explain. When she reached the pillar, she placed her hand against it. The moment she touched it, the lights exploded outward. Images filled the air around her, floating like ghosts. She saw planets and stars. She saw beings that looked nothing like humans, creatures with too many eyes or not enough limbs. She saw cities that floated in the clouds and ships that sailed between galaxies. And then she saw something else. Something dark. It was like a wave, but made of nothing. Wherever it went, stars disappeared. Planets turned to dust. Light itself seemed to die. The wave moved slowly across the universe, eating everything in its path. The images showed entire galaxies vanishing, swallowed by this creeping darkness. Elena pulled her hand away from the pillar. She was breathing hard, her heart racing with fear. "What was that?" Thomas asked. He had seen the images too. His face was pale. Before Elena could answer, a voice spoke. It came from everywhere at once, filling the chamber like music. The language was strange, but somehow Elena understood every word. The structure was translating for them. "You have found the cradle," the voice said. "We hoped you would. We hoped you would survive long enough to find it. Who are you?" Elena asked the empty air. "We were the Coalition," the voice replied. 1,000 species from 1,000 worlds. We lived and loved and built wonders across the stars. But the silence came, and we could not stop it. The images appeared again, showing the dark wave consuming planet after planet. Elena watched alien families hold each other as their worlds crumbled around them. She watched great fleets of ships try to fight the darkness and fail. She watched civilizations that had lasted for millions of years turn to nothing in moments. "What is the silence?" she asked. "We do not know," the voice admitted. "It appeared at the edge of the universe billions of years ago. Some thought it was a natural force, like gravity or time. Others believed it was a weapon created by beings from another reality. We never found out. We only knew that it could not be stopped. It could not be reasoned with. It simply consumed." Thomas stepped forward. "But you survived. You built this place." "No," the voice said sadly. "We did not survive. This message was recorded long ago, before the silence reached our galaxy. We knew we were going to die, but we refused to let all life die with us." New images appeared in the air. Elena saw massive ships traveling across the universe, carrying precious cargo. Some carried seeds and genetic material. Others carried knowledge stored in crystals and machines. They spread out in every direction, fleeing the approaching darkness. "We seeded life across the cosmos," the voice explained. "We planted the building blocks on billions of worlds, hoping that some might grow. We buried vaults like this one on many planets, waiting for new beings to find them. Earth was one of those seeds. You are our children." Elena felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Everything she knew about human history, about evolution, about life itself, was changing in an instant. "We're not alone," she whispered. "We came from somewhere else." "Not exactly," the voice said. "The seeds we planted were simple. They needed billions of years to grow. You evolved on your own. Your thoughts, your dreams, your achievements, they are all truly yours. But the spark that started it all, that came from us." Thomas laughed, but there was no joy in it. "So we have parents out there, somewhere in the stars. Can we find them? Can we talk to them?" The chamber went quiet for a long moment. When the voice spoke again, it was softer than before. "The cradle has been listening since you sent your first radio signals into space a century ago. We have heard you calling out to the galaxy. We detected your Prometheus message. We have been monitoring the universe for any response." Elena felt hope rising in her chest. "And? Did anyone answer?" "No one," the voice said. "In all the years we have listened, in all the directions we have looked, we have found nothing. The seeded worlds are silent. The old civilizations are gone. The silence has consumed them all. You are the only ones left." The hope in Elena's chest turned to ice. She looked at Thomas, at her team, at the beautiful alien machines around her. All of this wonder, all of this achievement, and in the end, everyone was dead. Everyone except humanity. "We're alone," she said. "Truly alone." "Yes," the voice confirmed. "But there is more you must know. The silence is still moving. It has been traveling toward this galaxy for billions of years. Our calculations suggest it will arrive in approximately 70 of your Earth years." 70 years. Elena did the math in her head. Her grandchildren would be old by then. Their children would be young adults. 70 years seemed like a long time, but for a threat like the silence, it was nothing. "You brought us here to warn us," she said. "Yes, and to give you a chance." The pillar lit up again, and new images appeared. This time they showed blueprints and designs, plans for machines and weapons and shields. "We saved everything we knew. Every piece of technology, every scientific discovery, every weapon we built to fight the silence. We could not defeat it. But perhaps you can." Elena studied the designs floating in the air. Some she understood, at least partly. Others were completely beyond her. It would take years, maybe decades, to make sense of it all. "The blueprints are incomplete," the voice admitted. "We ran out of time. But you are clever creatures. We have watched you grow. We have seen you solve problems that should have been impossible. If anyone can finish what we started, it is you." Thomas shook his head in disbelief. "You're asking us to save the universe. We just learned how to leave our own planet." "We are not asking," the voice said gently. "We are hoping. You are the last children of the Coalition. You carry the dreams of 1,000,000,000,000 souls who are gone. We cannot force you to fight, but we believe you will choose to. It is in your nature to survive. It is in your nature to hope." Elena looked at her team. She saw fear in their eyes, but also something else: determination, pride, anger at a universe that had been so cruel to so many. She turned back to the pillar and placed her hand on it one more time. "Show us everything," she said. "We have a lot of work to do." The cradle responded, and the light grew brighter. Information flowed into the machines the team had brought with them, filling their storage drives with the knowledge of 1,000 dead civilizations. Humanity had asked if anyone else was out there. Now they had their answer. They were the last ones left. And in 70 years, the thing that had killed everyone else was coming for them too. But Elena refused to despair. They had been given a warning. They had been given tools. Most importantly, they had been given time. 70 years. It would have to be enough. The news spread across Earth like fire in dry grass. Within hours of Elena's return from the ocean depths, everyone knew. Governments tried to control the information, but it was impossible. Someone leaked the recordings. Someone shared the images. By the end of the first day, every person on the planet had seen the truth. They were not alone in the universe. They had never been alone. But now, they were the only ones left, and something was coming to end them too. Elena watched the chaos from her office in Geneva. On her screen, she could see riots in some cities and prayer gatherings in others. Stock markets crashed. Airlines canceled flights. Schools closed. The world had learned that it had 70 years to prepare for extinction, and it was not handling the news well. Some people refused to believe it. They called the whole thing a hoax, a trick by governments to control the population. They made videos explaining how the underwater structure was fake, how the alien message was computer-generated, how Elena herself was a paid actor. These people were loud, but they were not many. Most people believed. And their reactions fell into two camps. The first camp was despair. What was the point of anything if the universe was dying? Why go to work? Why have children? Why plant trees that would never grow tall enough? Elena saw reports of people leaving their jobs and spending their savings. She saw couples breaking up because they disagreed about bringing babies into a doomed world. She saw young people asking why they should study when there would be no future to use their knowledge in. The second camp was anger. These people demanded action. They marched in the streets, calling for their governments to do something. They wanted weapons built. They wanted ships constructed. They wanted humanity to fight. They did not care that the enemy was beyond understanding. They did not care that every other civilization had failed. They wanted to try anyway. Elena belonged to the second camp. She had always been a fighter. 3 months after the discovery, the governments of Earth gathered in Geneva for an emergency summit. Every nation sent their leaders. They argued for days about what to do. Some wanted to focus on defense, building shelters deep underground where humans could hide. Others wanted to flee, sending colony ships in every direction, hoping that some might escape. A few suggested surrender, accepting that humanity would die and choosing to spend their final decades in peace. Elena spoke to the summit on the 4th day. She stood before the most powerful people in the world and showed them the blueprints from the cradle. The beings who built this technology were older and wiser than us, she said. They had millions of years to develop their science. They could travel between stars like we travel between cities. And the silence still destroyed them. We cannot hide from it. We cannot run from it. Our only chance is to fight it with everything we have. A prime minister from a small European nation raised his hand. Dr. Vasquez, with respect, you just said that far more advanced civilizations tried to fight and failed. What makes you think we can succeed where they could not? Elena smiled sadly. I don't know that we can, but I know that we have to try. The blueprints they left us are incomplete, but they also said something important. They said humans are clever. They said we solve problems that should be impossible. Maybe they saw something in us that they did not have. Maybe we have a quality that they lacked. And what quality is that? The Prime Minister asked. Stubbornness, Elena replied. We are the most stubborn creatures in the galaxy. We refuse to give up, even when giving up makes sense. We fight wars we cannot win. We climb mountains that will kill us. We cross oceans in boats made of wood. That stubbornness might be what saves us. The summit continued for another week. In the end, the nations of Earth agreed to work together. They created a new organization called the Terran Continuity Council, tasked with preparing humanity for the silence. Every country would contribute resources, scientists, and soldiers. Every factory would shift to producing what was needed. Every school would add new subjects focused on the knowledge from the cradle. Elena was named Director of the Prometheus Initiative, the heart of humanity's defense effort. She accepted the position, knowing it would consume the rest of her life. The years passed. Elena watched her gray hair turn white. She watched her hands grow wrinkled and weak. But she also watched humanity transform. Factories that had once made cars began making spacecraft. Universities that had taught history and literature added courses in alien physics and strange mathematics. Children grew up knowing that they were being raised for war. They did not resent it. They embraced it. They called themselves the children of the cradle, and they worked harder than any generation before them. Not everyone supported the effort. Some people grew tired of the sacrifices. They wanted to live normal lives, to enjoy what time they had left. When the council told them they could not, when resources were rationed and freedoms were restricted, they grew angry. Rebellion broke out in the outer colonies. The settlements humanity had built on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. The colonists did not want to fight a war they believed was already lost. They wanted to take their ships and flee into the darkness, hoping to find some corner of the universe where the silence had not reached. The council sent soldiers to stop them. People died. Families were torn apart. Elena hated it, but she understood why it had to happen. Humanity could not afford to be divided. They needed every ship, every person, Every resource focused on a single goal. But the cost of unity weighed on her soul. On her 80th birthday, Elena stood on a balcony overlooking the shipyards of Earth orbit. Thousands of vessels floated in neat rows, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight. They were beautiful, each one a miracle of human engineering combined with alien knowledge. They were also weapons of war, built to fight a battle that might be impossible to win. Her assistant, now an old man himself, brought her a small cake with a single candle. "Make a wish." "Director," Thomas said. Elena looked at the candle for a long moment. Then she blew it out. "I wish I could see the end," she said quietly. "I wish I could know if any of this matters." Thomas put a hand on her shoulder. "It matters. Even if we fail, it matters. We didn't just lie down and accept death. We stood up. We fought. That means something." Elena nodded, but doubt still gnawed at her heart. She had given everything to this cause. She had sacrificed her peace, her happiness, her chance at a normal life. She had asked billions of others to do the same. If they failed, all of that sacrifice would mean nothing. That night, Elena made a decision. She recorded a message and broadcast it to every human being alive on Earth and in the colonies. She spoke from her heart, knowing it might be the last time she addressed her species. "My friends," she began, "I am old now. I will not live to see the silence arrive. That burden will fall to you, to your children, to the generations that come after. I am sorry I cannot stand beside you when that day comes." She paused, gathering her strength. The beings who seeded our world believed in us. They gave us everything they had because they thought we might be different. Not because we were special from the start, but because we had the potential to become special. The galaxy didn't answer our call because the galaxy is gone. But we are still here. We are the answer now. We carry the dreams of every creature that ever lived and died among the stars. Tears rolled down her wrinkled cheeks, but her voice stayed strong. Don't let them die. Don't let their hope be for nothing. Don't let their hope be for nothing. Don't let their hope be for nothing. Stand up, fight, and when the silence comes, show it what humans are made of. Show it that some lights refuse to go out. She ended the recording and sent it out into the universe. Elena died 2 weeks later, peacefully in her sleep. But her message lived on, repeated in schools and on ships, carved into monuments and passed down through generations. It became humanity's anthem, a reminder of why they fought. The silence was coming. But humanity would be ready, not because they were certain of victory, but because they refused to accept defeat. That was who they were. That was who they had always been, and that was who they would remain until the very end. 50 years had passed since the discovery of the cradle, and Earth was no longer recognizable. Commander Maya Chun stood on the observation deck of the orbital station called New Geneva, watching the sunrise paint the planet below in shades of gold and orange. She was 32 years old, born 15 years after Dr. Vasquez first descended into the Pacific. She had never known a world that was not preparing for war. Behind her, the station hummed with activity. Hundreds of engineers worked at their stations, monitoring the construction yards that stretched across the sky. Ships were being built at a pace that would have seemed impossible to previous generations. Every day, a new vessel rolled off the assembly lines. Every day, humanity's fleet grew stronger. Maya's grandmother had told her stories about the old world, the one that existed before the cradle. People had worried about small things back then, about politics and money and celebrity gossip. They had argued about borders and resources, and whose God was the right one. Those arguments seemed so foolish now. In the face of extinction, humanity had finally learned to work together, but not perfectly. Never perfectly. Maya walked to her station and pulled up the morning reports. There had been another protest on Mars, where colonists were demanding more food rations. A mining operation on one of Jupiter's moons had suffered an accident, killing 40 workers. And in the outer reaches of the solar system, the rebels were still causing trouble. The rebels called themselves the Scattered, and they believed humanity's plan was doomed to fail. They wanted to take ships and flee, spreading humanity as wide as possible across the universe. Some of them argued, their voices loud on the illegal broadcasts that the Council could not shut down, that running was the only logical choice. Fight and die for certain, they said, or run and maybe survive. Maya understood their fear. She even sympathized with it. But she could not agree with it. She had grown up listening to Elena Vasquez's final message. She had memorized every word, let it sink into her bones. Humanity was not meant to scatter like dust in the wind. They were meant to stand, to fight, to prove that some things in the universe could not be erased. A voice interrupted her thoughts. "Commander Chun, Admiral Okonkwo wants to see you." Maya nodded and made her way to the Admiral's office. Admiral Judith Okonkwo was the leader of Earth's combined military forces. A stern woman in her 60s, with scars on her face from a battle against the Scattered 10 years ago. She had no patience for fear, and even less for doubt. "Sit down, Chun," the Admiral said, gesturing to a chair. "We have a problem," Maya said. "The rebels again?" "Partly, but something bigger. Our long-range sensors detected something at the edge of the galaxy. The science team thinks it might be the silence." Maya felt her blood run cold. "That's impossible. We're supposed to have 20 more years. We thought we did. Either our calculations were wrong, or the silence is moving faster than it used to." The Admiral pulled up a holographic display showing the Milky Way galaxy. A dark patch had appeared at one edge, a place where stars should have been, but were not. This image was captured 3 months ago. Light takes time to reach us, so what we're seeing already happened. By now, it's probably closer. Maya stared at the darkness. It was hard to look at, even in an image. Her eyes wanted to slide away from it, to pretend it was not there. But she forced herself to keep looking. "How long do we have?" she asked. "Best estimate?" 15 years. Maybe less. 15 years. Maya thought about everything that still needed to be done. Ships that were not built. Weapons that were not tested. Soldiers that were not trained. They were running out of time. "The Council needs to know," she said. "The Council already knows. They've decided to keep it secret for now. If people learn that the silence is ahead of schedule, there could be panic. The Scattered would gain supporters. Our whole effort could fall apart." Maya shook her head. "We can't lie to them. People deserve to know what they're fighting for. And they will know, eventually. But not yet. For now, we accelerate the timeline. We work faster, harder, longer. We do whatever it takes to be ready." The Admiral leaned forward, her eyes intense. "That's why I called you here, Chun. I want you to lead the construction of our final project. The thing that might actually make a difference." The Admiral pressed a button, and the hologram changed. Now it showed the blueprints for a single massive ship, larger than anything humanity had ever built. Its design was strange, combining human engineering with the alien technology from the cradle. "We call it the Prometheus," the Admiral said, "named after Dr. Vasquez's original project. It's been in development for 30 years. The original blueprints came from the cradle, but we've had to fill in a lot of gaps on our own." Maya studied the design. At the heart of the ship was something that made no sense to her, a device that seemed to bend the laws of physics just by existing. "What is that?" she asked, pointing to it. "We call it the Echo Engine. It's our invention, not theirs." The alien blueprints showed us how to manipulate the fabric of space itself, but they never thought to use it this way. The Admiral smiled grimly. The echo engine doesn't just push against the silence. It pushes back with existence itself. It broadcasts the fundamental truth that something is here, that reality exists, that the universe is not empty. Does it work? We don't know. We've tested it on small scales, and the results are promising. But we won't know if it really works until we use it against the silence itself. Maya thought about this for a long moment. A weapon that fought nothingness with existence. A machine that insisted the universe was real. It was either brilliant or insane. Probably both. Why me? She asked. There are officers with more experience. Because you believe, the Admiral said simply. I've read your file, Chun. I've watched you train. You don't fight because you're ordered to. You fight because you think we can win. That kind of faith is rare. The people building this ship need to be led by someone who believes in what they're doing. Maya stood up slowly. She looked at the hologram of the Prometheus, at the impossible machine at its heart. 20 years ago, she had been a child listening to stories about the cradle. Now she was being asked to lead humanity's last hope. I'll do it, she said. But I have one condition. The Admiral raised an eyebrow. Name it. When the silence comes, I want to be on that ship. I want to be in the first line. If we're going to fight, I'm going to fight with everyone else. The Admiral nodded slowly. I expected nothing less. Report to the construction yard tomorrow. You have a lot of work to do. Maya left the office and walked back to the observation deck. The Earth had rotated while she was gone, and now she could see the night side of the planet, glittering with the lights of 1 billion people. Each of those lights was a person with hopes and dreams, with families and fears. Each of those lights was counting on her generation to save them. 15 years. It was not much time, but it was enough to try. Maya placed her hand on the window, feeling the cold glass against her palm. She thought about Dr. Vasquez, who had started all of this. She thought about the ancient beings who had seeded Earth with life. She thought about the trillion species that had already fallen to the silence. We're still here, she whispered to the darkness. And we're not going anywhere. Below her, the lights of Earth kept shining. Above her, the shipyards kept building. And somewhere in the distance, the silence kept coming. The race was on. The silence arrived on a Tuesday. Commander Maya Chun had spent 14 years preparing for this day. She had watched the Prometheus grow from blueprints to reality. She had trained thousands of soldiers. She had buried friends who died in accidents and battles with the scattered. Now she stood on the bridge of the greatest ship humanity had ever built, staring at something that should not exist. The edge of the Milky Way was gone. Where there should have been stars, there was nothing. Not darkness, not empty space, but true nothingness, an absence so complete that the human mind struggled to understand it. Looking at it made Maya feel sick. Her eyes did not know how to process what they were seeing. All stations report, she commanded, keeping her voice steady. Weapons ready. Commander, shields at full power. Echo engine standing by. Fleet in position. Maya nodded and looked at the tactical display. Behind the Prometheus, 10,000 ships formed a wall of steel and light. They had come from every corner of the solar system, carrying soldiers and scientists, engineers and ordinary citizens who had volunteered to fight. They were the Terran Defense Fleet, the collected might of all humanity, and they were terrified. Maya could see it in their faces on the communication screens. She could hear it in their voices. Fear was everywhere, thick as smoke. But underneath the fear was something else. Determination, pride, the stubborn human, refusal to go quietly into the night. She opened a channel to the entire fleet. This is Commander Chun. she said. In a few minutes, we are going to do something no one has ever done before. We are going to fight the silence. We are going to tell the universe that we exist and that we refuse to be forgotten. She paused, gathering her thoughts. 70 years ago, Dr. Elena Vasquez sent a message to the stars. She asked if anyone was out there. No one answered because everyone else was already gone. The silence had taken them all. But today, we are going to give a different kind of answer. We are going to show the universe that some lights refuse to go out. On the screens, Maya saw soldiers standing straighter. She saw fear turning to resolve. She saw the children of the cradle becoming what they had always been meant to be. We fight for everyone who came before us, she continued. For the beings who seeded our world and believed we could be special. For Dr. Vasquez, who gave her life to prepare us. For our parents and grandparents who built the ships we fly. We carry their hopes with us. We carry 1 trillion dreams. She took a deep breath. Today, we answer. Fleet, advance. The ships move forward as one, engines blazing against the darkness. Maya watched the silence grow larger on the screen, a wall of nothing that seemed to stretch forever. As they got closer, strange things began to happen. Sensors malfunctioned. Lights flickered. Some crew members reported hearing whispers, voices that spoke in languages no one understood. The silence was not just destroying matter. It was unmaking reality itself. It was as if the universe was forgetting that anything existed. Range to target? Maya asked. 10,000 kilometers, Commander. Entering optimal firing range. All ships, open fire. The fleet unleashed everything it had. Missiles carrying warheads of compressed light streaked toward the silence. Beams of energy that could cut through moons lanced into the darkness. Bombs that bent gravity itself detonated in brilliant flashes, and nothing happened. The weapons entered the silence and simply stopped existing. No explosions, no impact. They just vanished, swallowed by the nothingness as easily as a drop of water disappearing into an ocean. No effect, the weapons officer reported, his voice shaking. Our weapons are having no effect. Maya had expected this. They all had. The ancient beings who built the cradle had tried the same thing and failed. But humanity had not come here just to repeat the mistakes of the past. Deploy the reality anchors, she ordered. Small devices launched from the fleet, spreading out in a wide formation. They were based on alien blueprints, but improved by human engineers. When they activated, they created a web of stabilized space, an area where reality was reinforced against the silence's touch. For a moment, the advance of the nothingness slowed. The anchors were working, holding back the tide. Cheers erupted across the fleet, but the celebration did not last. The silence pushed harder, and one by one, the anchors began to fail. They flickered, sparked, and then disappeared, consumed like everything else. The anchors are falling, the sensor officer reported. We're losing ground. Maya gripped the arms of her chair. This was the moment she had feared. They had bought themselves time, but not enough. The silence was too vast, too powerful. It was like trying to stop an ocean with a single wall, but they still had one weapon left. Activate the echo engine, Maya commanded. The Prometheus shuddered as the great machine at its heart came to life. It drew power from every system on the ship, channeling energy into a device that humanity had built entirely on its own. The alien blueprints had shown them how to touch the fabric of reality. But the echo engine did something different. It did not fight. It spoke. A pulse erupted from the Prometheus, spreading outward in all directions. It carried no destruction, no force, no fire. Instead, it carried a message, the same message Dr. Vasquez had sent 70 years ago, now amplified 1 billion times. We are here. We exist. The universe is not empty. The pulse struck the silence, and for the first time, the nothingness reacted. It stopped. Maya stared at the screen, hardly daring to breathe. The wall of absence had ceased its advance. It hung there, motionless, as if confused. The whispers that the crew had reported grew louder, then changed. They were no longer random noise. They were questions. What are you? Why do you persist? Why do you not accept the end? The questions were not spoken in words. They appeared in Maya's mind, in every mind across the fleet. The silence was not just a force of destruction. It was aware. It was curious. Maya stood up from her chair and walked to the front of the bridge. She placed her hand on the window, looking out at the vast nothingness that had consumed 1 trillion civilizations. "We are humanity," she said aloud, knowing somehow that the silence could hear her. "We are the children of beings who refuse to let the universe die in silence. We are stubborn and foolish, and we never know when to quit. And we are telling you, right here, right now, that we will not be erased." She signaled the fleet. Every ship activated its own version of the echo engine, smaller devices that had been installed over the past decade. 10,000 voices joined together, broadcasting the same message. "We are here. We remember. We will not be forgotten." The silence trembled. It had never encountered anything like this. It had consumed everything in its path for billions of years, and nothing had ever pushed back. Nothing had ever insisted on existing. Nothing had ever refused to be forgotten. For 11 days, the battle raged. Ships were lost as the silence lashed out in confusion. Thousands of soldiers died, their vessels swallowed by the nothingness. But for every ship that fell, 10 more kept broadcasting, kept insisting, kept answering. On the 12th day, the silence withdrew. It did not disappear. It did not die, but it pulled back from the edge of the Milky Way, retreating into the darkness from which it had come. And from within its depths, Maya felt something she had never expected to feel. Recognition. The silence had heard them. It had understood them. And for the first time in billions of years, it had chosen not to consume. Maya sank into her chair, exhausted beyond words. Around her, the bridge crew were crying, laughing, hugging each other. On the communication screens, the entire fleet was celebrating. They had done the impossible. They had survived, but Maya knew the truth. The silence was not defeated. It was still out there, vast and eternal. It might return one day. It might never return. But it had learned something today. It had learned that some things in the universe refuse to be silent. 3 months later, Maya stood in a rebuilt cradle. Now a museum and memorial at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. A new statue had been added to the main chamber, carved from stone that would last for millennia. It showed Dr. Elena Vasquez, hand raised toward the stars, eyes filled with hope. At the base of the statue, words had been carved in 100 different languages. They were the last words of Vasquez's final message, the words that had carried humanity through 70 years of fear and sacrifice. We are the answer. Maya traced the letters with her fingers. Around her, children ran and played, born in a world that finally knew peace. They would grow up hearing stories about the silence, about the battle at the edge of the galaxy. They would learn that they were the descendants of beings who had refused to give up. And one day, if the silence ever returned, they would be ready to answer again. Outside, the sun was setting over the ocean. Ships still flew overhead, no longer weapons of war, but vessels of exploration. Humanity was spreading across the galaxy, filling the empty spaces left by those who had come before. They were not just survivors. They were inheritors. The cradle had given them a spark, and they had turned it into a fire that would never go out. The universe had asked if anyone was there. Only Earth had answered, and that answer would echo forever